Hello there, and welcome. Today, we're diving into something really cool, a story that's told in just 4 short paragraphs. We're going to break down how these few sentences manage to create a surprisingly complete and, honestly, pretty compelling narrative about some very musical wedding guests.
So that leads us to the big question, right? Can a perfect story, one with a real beginning, middle, and end, actually be told in just 4 little paragraphs? Well, the answer might surprise you. Let's find out.
I think the best way to look at this is through a classic 3-act structure, kind of like a movie. And every great story kicks off with Act 1, the overture. This is the setup, where the scene gets set and the mood is established with just one single gentle beat.
And here is that beat. We open on a golden retriever, totally lost in the moment. That thumping tail, the half-closed eyes. Look, this isn't just a description. It's an invitation. It's pulling us into this feeling of pure, simple bliss. It's really the calm before the delightful storm.
This opening works exactly like a classic film scene. We've got our protagonist, the golden retriever. The thing that kicks it all off, the inciting incident, it's not some huge event, it's just the music. This whole thing establishes a really calm, blissful mood, and it makes a promise to us. Hey, a story is starting here. Pay attention. Okay, so let's move on to Act 2 and see how this thing builds. This is the climax of our short story, where we go from that quiet little solo performance into a full-on joyous chorus. The energy is about to shift big time.
And there it is. The story just expands. It's not just one dog's private moment anymore. A whole group of 3 dogs jumps in, and their howl isn't scary or aggressive. The text is specific, calling it melodious and playful. This is a moment of shared public celebration, and it's timed perfectly with the music's own peak.
And you can see the escalation so clearly here. We started with the quiet rhythm of our soloist, the golden retriever. Then we moved to the unified howl of the chorus. And all of that builds perfectly into what becomes this triumphant finale. It's just a masterclass in raising the stakes.
So here's the really brilliant part, this gentle, super humorous conflict at the heart of the story. I mean, at any wedding, who are the official stars? The newlyweds, of course, but in this scene, who has completely stolen the show? Yep, the dogs have become the main event.
And that brings us to the punchline. The newlyweds are there, they're laughing, surrounded by their guests, but they are, in the absolute best way possible, utterly upstaged. You can just picture it, can't you? The dogs, tongues out, standing there victoriously among a bunch of fallen petals. That is the peak of the action.
But every great climax needs a resolution. So, welcome to Act 3, the coda. After all that noise and celebration, the story shifts gears into a quiet, reflective moment. The energy changes completely, from this big public spectacle to a feeling of private satisfaction.
So now we're in the aftermath. The party's wound down. The setting is a moonlit, mostly empty garden. This shift immediately tells us that the main event is over, and we're now in the story's final, concluding moments. The story gives us one last character to follow, a single corgi, and its little journey provides the absolute perfect resolution. It crosses the now empty stage, the dance floor, it has one last little interaction with the scene, sniffing a flower, and then it exits. And that phrase, a contented swagger, that's the feeling of a job well done. The story feels totally complete.
So, we've walked through the story, but let's take a second to deconstruct why this little masterpiece is so incredibly effective. What are the key things that make it work so well in such a tiny amount of space?
Well, it all comes down to this number, 4. With just 4 distinct paragraphs, 4 scenes really, we were taken on a complete narrative journey. Each and every scene had its own specific purpose, and it moved the story forward without a single wasted word.
And it works because it follows this timeless model, the 3-act structure. We had a clear beginning, with the golden retriever setting the scene. We had a middle, the confrontation, where the dogs completely take over. And we had a clear end, the resolution, with the corgi's quiet exit. This structure is just so powerful, it doesn't matter if it's in a huge blockbuster movie or a tiny 4-paragraph story.
So really, the recipe for this great little story is pretty clear. It has this fantastic emotional arc, right? From blissful to triumphant, all the way to contented. It uses specific sensory details like the thumping tail and the forgotten flower. It gives us relatable protagonists. I mean, who doesn't love a happy dog? And the whole thing just ties up with a deeply satisfying conclusion. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. What is it that really makes a story unforgettable? Maybe it's not about how long it is or how complicated it is. Maybe, just like we've seen today, it's about capturing a perfect emotional moment with clarity, structure, and maybe just a little bit of contented swagger.